First up on today's show, Lily Swallow talks about how teachers will be able to go clean up their classrooms before the end of the school year.
After that, Julius Souza brings us a story on the local Black Lives Matter protests by the high school.
To close out the show, Zak Clayton brings us all new edition of Adam Update. Good morning, Framingham. Today is Tuesday, June 3rd, 13 school days until the closing of the school year. I'm Andrew Reynolds.
And I'm Colby Beck. With the current pandemic still going on, schools are closed for the rest of the year. This leaves a question: how are students going to get their belongings?
Teachers are allowed to go into school and clean up their classrooms next week and retrieve their belongings.
Lily Swallow has a video on how the procedure is going to work and how students can go to the school to get their belongings.
Due to the COVID-19 outbreak, FHS has been closed since March 12th. Since then, teachers have not been able to go back into the school in precaution to being exposed to the virus. With students officially not going back to school this year and finishing online, last week the teachers were allowed to go into the school to get what they needed for the summer. Each teacher was assigned specific times where they were allowed to go into the school to ensure less contact with others. Many teachers use this time to water their plants, clean, and pack up their classrooms. Due to schools closing so quickly, a lot of teachers had a lot to do and little time to get things done. Instead of getting classrooms ready for the summer, teachers are also making sure students' belongings were dealt with properly. FHS has created a system where if students with belongings in lockers or classrooms, they would be distributed out of their school and given back to them. Safety precautions are being taken very seriously when handling others' belongings, and therefore this process may take a while for all the students to get their belongings back. Reporting for Fire News, this has been Lily Swallow.
Ever since the closing of all restaurants and bars since mid-March, restaurants have been struggling to keep open. On Friday, the Baker administration said restaurants can start to offer outdoor seating services at the start of the state's Phase 2 of reopening, which is set to begin on June 6th. Last week, the owner of Samba Steak and Sushi on Route 9 in Framingham set up more than a dozen picnic tables in their parking lot to expand towards outdoor dining. As a result, the restaurant was ordered to pay a $100 fine as a result of breaking the Phase 1 guidelines. According to the Framingham source, on May 27th, the Framingham Health Department issued an oral warning to the owner of Samba. On May 28th, the Framingham Health Department issued a written order to end their outdoor seating operation. And then on Friday, the Framingham Health Department issued a $100 fine to Samba. Fly News will keep you updated on any similar stories, as well as this one yet to come.
Amidst the peaceful protests for the death of George Floyd, riots have erupted in cities across America. One of the groups linked to these riots is the militant group Antifa. Antifa is a far-left-wing extremist group that stands for anti-fascism. The group has been linked to several extremely violent riots in cities such as Seattle, Washington. Over the weekend, the President of the United States has declared Antifa a terrorist organization. Due to these riots, the U.S. National Guard has been called to 15 states. U.S. officials have been given contrasting explanations for who is responsible for these riots, with some suggesting outside groups and individuals were involved, according to BBC. As new information comes up, we will keep you updated. After the tragic death of George Floyd, protesters have taken to the streets to protest police brutality.
At the gas station by the end of A Street, protesters were standing with signs for the Black Lives Matter movement.
Cars drove by and honked in support of the teens standing up for what they believed in.
With first-hand footage of the protests and more on the issue, we have Jullys Souza.
This past Thursday, Friday, and Sunday, there were local protests for the Black Lives Matter movement. These recent protests started because of a black man named George Floyd who was killed by a white officer in Minneapolis on the 25th. Many people were outraged, and the outrage came from when the police officer had put his knee on the neck of Floyd to restrain him, but Floyd was already in handcuffs flat on his stomach. Since Monday, many online influencers and online celebrities have posted on social media platforms about George Floyd, and days after the death of Floyd, many had begun protesting. One of the most well-known protests about Floyd happened outside of a Target. The protest started off peacefully until everything started to escalate. These protests out of state had influenced Kelvin Rivera and had made him want to speak out as he explains why he wants change.
I was born in Puerto Rico, and since I was moved here, I always kind of felt afraid of going to the street, just to enjoy life, not to do anything, but just to enjoy life. With all the things that are going on, with minority groups being attacked by the government and the police, if anything. But the reason why I organized this and I kind of put on the page is so people can express that feeling and we can be heard and we can start making a change to our future and save our lives.
The protests were all peaceful, and the Thursday protest took place on the intersection of the bottom of 8th Street and Congress Street by the Gulf gas station. Many kids had made signs and posters saying Black Lives Matter and honk if they agree with them, also signs saying Justice for Floyd. On Friday, the kids took their protest downtown to City Hall, where they were holding their signs in front of the building chanting for their movement. And finally on Sunday, a huge group of protesters were on Route 30 in front of Target and Chick-fil-A, where they were holding up signs getting honked with support in the movement. For Flyer News, I'm Julius Souza. Let's take it back to our anchors.
With the pandemic underway, there's tons of more interesting science-related stuff.
That's right, and with tons of brand new scientific discoveries come brand new interesting facts that we did not know.
Flyer News correspondent Zak Clayton is back yet again with another edition of his weekly Atom Update.
Hello, welcome back to another edition of Atom Update, where you can find your weekly science news. Welcome back everyone, I'm your host Zak Clayton. Today we'll be taking a look at the recent SpaceX launch and the oldest disk galaxy ever discovered. Last Saturday, SpaceX launched its first manned spacecraft at 3:22 p.m. It soon left the atmosphere and went into orbit, eventually docking problem-free with the International Space Station. This was the first manned launch of a privately owned spacecraft to reach the ISS. The capsule of the rocket, called the Crew Dragon capsule, is designed to be completely autonomous. However, some manual capabilities were tested during the trip. This is a very big step towards the next era of space travel, where privately owned spacecraft will voyage through space. Scientists recently discovered the oldest known disk galaxy being around 12 billion years old. This is around 1.5 billion years after the Big Bang. This galaxy showed up way before astronomers thought possible, since most disk galaxies formed 3 or 4 billion years after the Big Bang. This suggests that disk-shaped galaxies can form much quicker than originally thought. This could change how we understand galaxies form in the universe. Thank you all for watching this edition of Atom Update, where even the smallest matter can affect the world. Be sure to look forward to the next edition coming up next time. I'm your host, Zak Clayton. Let's take it back to Colby and Andrew.
That's all for today's episode of Flyer News Remote. Make sure to not miss an episode by subscribing to our channel and making sure to hit that bell right next to the subscribe button to never miss an episode of Flyer News Remote.
Remember to also follow us on Instagram at flyer_news for updates and behind-the-scenes photos. Please be safe and stay inside. For Flyer News, I'm Colby Beck.
And I'm Andrew Reynolds. Have a great rest of your week, everyone.